let's start talking about HSMA and what the HSMA program is, and say the evolution of HSMA over the last few years, and then moving into what it's going to look like this year for our very first national expansion into HSMA. So the HSMA program, if we were to broadly describe it, is basically typically for analytical stuff, although not exclusively. We've got a GP who's working with us at the moment. We've had people from public health. We've had service improvement managers, but somebody that's either working in an analytical role or who likes that kind of thing, is a little bit geeky. You want to be in good company with us. That kind of person that really enjoys that kind of thing, who's working in some sort of health, social care, or policing organization. And basically, these people get released from their usual role for a day a week for 1 year. So it's a big commitment, but hopefully it's a big investment in something that will reap dividends for you personally, and also for your organizations. And the HSMA program combines both an extensive training course, a huge training course now, which teaches all sorts of things in programming, in operational research, and in data science. And that all takes place in the first 3 months, which run from October to December. But then the real heart of HSMA is the second bit. So I actually don't like describing HSMA as a training program, because the training is great and it's fantastic to develop your skills. And I'm the kind of person that has a pixelated version of my face on a t-shirt, so you can judge the level of geekery there, and that's all fun and we love doing stuff like that. But actually the real heart, as Stuart alluded to earlier, and Martin, the real heart and the real value of this is actually then immediately using those new skills to apply to a real world problem that can make a real difference for your organization, for your patients, for the public that you're serving in your area. And that's been the real value of HSMA over the years, and where we've seen the real true benefits and the true impact from this. So in the 9-month phase 2, which runs from January to September, you basically take those skills that you've learned, and then you come up with a project idea with your organization, and you say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run a project, and you will manage the project, and I'm going to use those skills that I've been taught in order to do this thing, so that immediately I can take this training that I've had and immediately apply it to something useful. And that's really important, because I think we've probably all been on training courses in the past where we thought, that was fascinating, I don't know if I'll ever use it, and you never do. But the real difference with HSMA is that you're immediately applying these skills. We're all applied researchers here, and that's what drives us. So there are kind of 5 key aims of the HSMA program. The first is to try and embed operational research and advanced data science within health, social care, and policing organizations, to get it really in the heart of the analytical functions within those organizations. Going hand in hand with that is this idea of increasing the level of evidence-based decision-making that's taking place in these sectors as well. And you'll have heard me talk in the video, and it's absolutely true that until more recent years, things just didn't work like that. I still remember going to a meeting many years ago with a team who said, this is how we work out where our district nurses go. And he showed me a pen and a piece of string put into a board, and that's how it works. And that's no fault of the NHS, it's just the way that things have evolved, and it's this lack of familiarity with some of these tools and techniques. And to be able to give a bit of exposure to some of these tools and show what they can do can really make a massive difference. Thirdly, to develop the skills of the analysts working in these sectors. This is been a fantastic side effect actually of HSMA. If ever there was a reason for you to join the HSMA program, it would be the very, very high percentage of people that go through the HSMA program and get promoted to very senior positions. It seems to happen a lot. So I think we can take a little bit of credit for it, because it seems more than coincidence that it seems to be happening a lot, which is fantastic. And so clearly the skills that you will develop are being valued by your organizations. Also to create embedded OR ambassadors, not people that can just do this, but also can spout the virtues of this. There are other preachers, if you like, that can go into their organization and say, look, there's another way of doing things. and we've got some skills now to be able to do this, and trying to change that conventional way of thinking. And then fifthly, something that often gets overlooked, but I think is a massive value that placed on the HSMA program, is this idea of developing and fostering collaboration between health, social care and policing organisations. The learning set meetings, which I'll talk about a little bit later, which are a core part of the HSMA programme, are a fantastic way for people just to come together and share ideas. I still remember the pilot HSMA programme we did with our 6 HSMAs. We all came together once a month. We had lunch and stuff, and 2 of them got talking, and within 3 minutes, just from talking to each other, they managed to solve a problem that they'd had for years, and all because one didn't realise that the other had this capacity, this ward that they could use, and they solved this problem within minutes, and it was quite extraordinary to watch. And so the absolute beauty of just seeing people talk to each other and collaborate and share it is a fantastic thing. So we're talking a lot about operational research and data science this morning. So what do we mean by those terms? Operational research probably has the worst name for any type of research in the world. We all pretty much hate it within the team, but it is what it is. And basically, it means it's using kind of modeling, simulation, analytical techniques to help inform decisions about the operational management of an organization. So a typical OR question might be something like, where are the delays in our emergency department processes and how do we reduce them? Data science, which is something which the team over the last 3 years in particular migrated far more into using, essentially uses the other side of things. It's using data-led approaches, things like artificial intelligence and data analysis, to try and generate insight from the data. So rather than starting with the system, it starts with the data generated from that system to try and generate and derive insight from it. So a typical data science question might say something like, can we teach a machine to predict when an emergency department is going to breach the 4-hour target? And in fact, one of our colleagues is actually looking at something like that right now. So those are the kinds of things that we tend to look at. Now, the history of the program, as I say, we started with the very first pilot program back in 2016, and we had our 6, I call them pioneers, and I think it's right, I think they are pioneers, 6 pioneer HSMAs who, you know, signed up for this thing, not knowing if it was going to be any good. You know, we didn't know if it was going to work. This was all very experimental. And so we kept the focus of it fairly narrow. We focused on pathway modeling. There was a sort of short 2-day training program, and we were finding our feet a little bit with it at the time. But it was enormously successful. We had some fantastic impact generated from that. Indeed, one of our colleagues actually from Cornwall, who was on that program, got promoted to quite a senior position because of the work he was doing as part of that program. Then in 2018, we had the second round. So with the pilot, we had a little evaluation that ran alongside that, and that came up with a number of recommendations. I think it was 15 recommendations for the program. We implemented all of them, I'm very pleased to say, and so we expanded out for the second iteration. We had a massively increased number of applications that came through. So I said in the video, we had over 50 applications, and we took forward 26 of them. We had this idea of introducing a 2-phase program structure so that we could help people, rather than sort of asking you to come along at the start with ideas about what you might do. We wanted this idea of teaching you things first to start generating those ideas and to help you work up those ideas. So we brought in that 2-phase program structure. We started to introduce patient involvement in our project selection. That's been a hugely beneficial aspect of the program moving forward as well. This idea about getting patients involved in the selection process to say, you know, what matters to them as well. It's really important to hear that patient voice. We gradually, over the course of that program, transitioned to free and open source approaches, and we vastly expanded the scope of the methods that we taught. And we went up to a 6-day training program. Then last year, obviously, a global event happened, and we were very keen to run another HSMA program. And actually, we saw this as a potential opportunity to see, because we'd long wanted to expand to a national audience. And at the same time, we were kind of piloting, working with the police, with the what we called at the time the Police Service Modelling Associates Programme as well. And so we decided to do a little pilot, basically, of HSMA4 to see how this might work, to move the whole thing online, so that we could essentially grab anyone without barriers. So moving to that virtual delivery model, we had over 50 HSMAs for the current round of the program. We by this point moved exclusively to teaching free and open source approaches, meaning there's no kind of we're not teaching you things that you have to pay £3,000 for a piece of software if you want to use it in the future. This is all freely available stuff and stuff that you can share with anyone. We introduced the police service associates as an integrated part into the HSMA program as well. We brought in the idea of having a Slack workspace and peer support groups to help people support each other. And we've vastly expanded the scope of the training, focusing a lot on data science as well. So we moved up to a 17-day training program, which was fun trying to write that last year, as you can imagine. Actually, it was in many ways. But quite a jump, as you can see, back from our initial pilots back in 2016. And some of the projects that HSMAs have worked on, both in the current round and also in previous rounds, have been fascinating and fantastic and impactful. So we've had somebody, Simon, who you saw in that video from Derriford, looking to build an AI system to assist surgical cancellation decisions. I mean, that's magical. That's so amazing to be able to do that kind of thing. We've had somebody in Cornwall who's been in the past who used modelling to try and predict stroke bed requirements, and I think ended up sitting on the National Stroke Board as a result of his work. We've got somebody at the moment, a GP in North Devon. He hadn't done any programming before the start of this course, and then a few months later, he started to come up with some fantastic ideas, including some vaccination modelling, which I'll talk about in a moment. But he's doing another project, which is looking at basically using natural language processing techniques to try and identify clues in GP patient notes that might predict whether someone's going to be imminently admitted. Lots and lots of work in mental health. We've had some of our alumni who've been fantastic working in with Devon Partnership Trust in particular, looking at resourcing for new mental health services, which has led to over £13 million of new investment directly as a result of HSMA projects in the region. And all sorts of things. We've got people in the police at the moment, Devon and Cornwall Police, looking at using network analysis, natural language processing to identify the relationships between offenders and their victims. We've got a guy from Avon and Somerset Police who's doing amazing work. He's just created this fantastic dashboard that has this AI-based underpinning, which can predict which forces across the country are getting more or fewer positive tweets and what people are talking about in relation to the service. Fantastic information they have, and it just goes on and on. I mean, there's so much that people are doing and have done on this. And I mentioned our GP from North Devon. I'm not going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to show you now, but I will share this link with you after, because as I say, within about 7 weeks of him starting the program, he decided to build a vaccination model to predict what was going to happen in their vaccination clinic that obviously they'd been very hurriedly asked to set up, and they had no experience of doing something of that scale. But he saw an opportunity from the training he'd been given around pathway modeling to be able to develop a model to try and predict what was going to happen in their system. And so he built it, and he'd never coded weeks before. And so he built this model. He's now developed this up. It's a free and open source generic model that's now available at this link. As I say, we will share this link for you. Anybody with a free Google account can just log on. You can use that model. We're co-authoring a paper which is going to be published on medRxiv in the next few days, which talks all about the model and its development. And they've used this. They used it at the start, and they averted a disaster in their system by using this model, because actually what they thought they were going to do and what they thought would work would have collapsed because that actually they just couldn't have met the level of demand properly with the way they were going to set it up, and it would have led to massive overcrowding issues, which obviously is a big problem when you're in the middle of a pandemic. So they use this, and so it was so gratifying to see somebody be able to use these skills so immediately and with so much impact. So I've talked about the program structure, that we've got this two-phase structure where we've got the training program part in phase 1, which runs from October to December, and then the project work in phase 2. So all of HSMA 4 will be delivered virtually. This has allowed us to go without walls, if you like, and allow us to expand out to anyone who's in a health, social care or policing organisation in England. And HSMA 4 is going to take forward between 7 and 17 projects into phase 2. The exact number will depend on the trainee mentor scheme, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment. And basically, each project that's taken forward into phase 2, the HSMA that's pitched that project will become that project manager. It becomes their project. They have complete ownership of that project, and they will lead a team made up of all you guys that make it onto the program all across the country from different sectors, all working together on a particular project. Now, particularly for this program, we're also going to be encouraging HSMAs to consider pitching collaborative project proposals that address issues of common national interest or which span health, social care and policing sectors. So, there's a big thing at the moment about how we're trying to recover from the impact of this pandemic. And so a lot of common issues and challenges being faced. And it'd be great to see some projects from the HSMA program that can really help to try and address some of those common problems. So the phase 1 training program will have over 140 hours of training content spread over 9 modules over the 3 months between October and December. And all of the training will be delivered in the same way we did for HSMA 3, where you basically get a combination. Most of the stuff will be live lectures via Zoom, where you'll get a sort of a burst of lecture, and then you'll be set off in your little groups to work on some exercises, and then you'll come back and share that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about something else, etc. You'll all be invited to the HSMA Slack workspace, which is an online platform which basically allows you to chat and share things. And it's very good for coders because it's very easy to share code, which is obviously what you're all going to be doing. And each of you will be split into a peer support group, which I'll talk about in a moment. And there'll also be some pre-recorded bonus content as well on our HSMA YouTube channel. And you can see from the box on the left, there's a huge range of stuff that we teach on this program, all sorts of modeling methods, all sorts of AI-based methods, some really exciting cutting-edge stuff that we teach. Now, at the end of phase 1, nobody likes these words. There will be a technical assessment. I will say, and I hope that when we did this for the last iteration of the program that the HSMAs would agree, we tried to make this as friendly as possible. So the assessment that we set is not there to try and catch people out, nor is it there to try and work out who the very best are. It's simply there to make sure that if you're going to take a project forward, that you've picked up enough of the skills that we think you'd be able to handle it. So it's just making sure that you wouldn't struggle, basically, if you were to take forward that project with the technical aspects of that. So you don't have to be the best of the best, but have you picked up enough of the skills? So please don't worry too much about that. And as I say, we will give you lots of support leading up to that as well. So I think I've covered a lot of that. Just to give you an idea, this is a sample training day from the last iteration of the program, and you can see there's a mix of sort of live lectures and then individual and group exercises and some fun things. Personally, I do like the exercise, Are You Smarter Than Dan as a 4-year-old? Is a cracking exercise that generated some fantastic stuff last time. So that'll be coming back for HSMA 4, and all will be revealed in the training as to what you need to do for that. So as part of the training, all of the training sessions are basically split into one of 2 categories. We have core sessions. Core sessions basically introduce the wide range of methods that we teach. And these are compulsory for everyone. So everyone needs to attend all of the core sessions. There are 72 hours worth of core sessions. A typical training day will have 2 3-hour sessions. So one that will run from in the morning from 9:30 to 12:30, and then an afternoon one from 1:30 till 4:30. Sometimes you have a sort of full day session that spans both of those, both the morning and the afternoon, with the same topic. Sometimes you'll have learn about something completely different in the morning and the afternoon. But the core sessions are basically there to introduce you to all of these things, and they pretty much everything in October and the first half of November, and there's a couple of little bits in December too. And really the idea of these core sessions are to give you the awareness of all of the stuff that we can do with OR and data science. But some of this stuff you may be more interested in than others, or it may be more relevant to you than others. So we also introduced the concept of the option sessions. And so these option sessions will basically allow you to dive deeper into each of the methods taught. Now, if possible, we would strongly recommend that all HSMAs attend all of the option sessions too, if that's possible. We realise it may not be. And so if that's the case, then you should attend as a minimum 30 of the 60 hours of option sessions. And if you're doing that, you should focus on the things that are of most interest to you and or of most relevance to what you're thinking about for your project. So essentially the core sessions are there to try and make you aware about what's out there and what the tools are that you can use. And that will hopefully help you think about what project you might put forward. And then the option sessions basically show you how to really get deep into this stuff. So you might come along to the machine learning thing and think, this is really, really interesting. I'm really interested in this. I could see some applications for this. And now I'm going to dive deep, and then we'll show you how to build neural networks. We'll show you how to do some fantastic things around prediction and all of the stuff that machine learning can do. And you'll be able to do it. You'll actually have some hands-on time, and you'll be coding this stuff yourselves. So one thing to be aware of, the option sessions will often require you to attend previous option sessions for a particular module. All of that's flagged up in the documents that you'll get in the application pack as well. And they typically run, they sort of start in mid-November time and run until around mid-December. So I mentioned this briefly before, but for the training program, you'll also all be split into one of 10 peer support groups. Now, basically, each peer support group is kind of a bit like a tutor group, where you can all go through the training together and you can help each other. And so you will have a dedicated Slack channel, which is only open to you guys and to the trainers. And you can work in your groups for the exercises during the training, and you can help each other. And basically, if you're stuck, you first ask your peer support group. And usually most people, as we did for HSMA 3, when you do a group exercise, you all sort of get on a little, they set up a little Teams call or Zoom call or whatever it may be, and you all get together and you have a go at this together during the exercise time. And then if you find you're all stuck and you can't move forward, then you can call for a trainer and they can come along and help you. And it helps us because it means that we haven't got 100 people all needing to our attention at the same time, but it also helps you guys because it helps you learn from each other. And it's also something that some of the groups did before in HSMA 3 was to kind of set up calls outside of the course to just go through things, kind of revise, look over their notes and just try and get cemented in the kind of stuff that you've been taught. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but just to flag up that as part of the training, you do require, it is a fundamental requirement, that you're going to need to install quite a number of pieces of software. Now, all of these pieces of software are free. And we ideally, you should try and install them on a work machine, i.e. whichever one you're going to be using moving forward to use this kind of stuff. But you probably also want to try and install it on a personal machine too, if possible, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. Now, the software includes, and there's full information about this in the application pack, the Python programming language. Virtually everything you're going to be doing on the course is Python based. And there's a recommendation to use something called the Anaconda Scientific Package. Again, there's a link in the application pack that contains the bits you need and the integrated development environments that we will be using. There's something called pip, which will automatically be installed as long as you install a new version of Python. And that pip is basically just a thing that allows you to install various Python packages on the fly. You'll also need to install the R programming language. You can get a little bit of training in R. We advise R Studio for that. A piece of software called QGIS, version 3 of QGIS, which our colleague Kerry will be taking you through some fantastic stuff that you can do with maps and geographic modeling. And although this isn't essential, we would strongly recommend, if possible, that you install both the Slack and Zoom apps. Now you can access both of these things via a browser if you can't install these things, but you're going to be using these all the time. They are the primary means of communication on the program. Zoom will be for all of the lectures, Slack for all of the communication between you and the trainers and between you and your peers. And so you probably want those things installed to make that easier. And you should also, you probably all have got a free Google account anyway to use something called Google Colab, and a free account at Insight Maker, which we use for system dynamics modeling. Now, the key thing I would say about this is that we are aware that sometimes there can be resistance to installing this kind of software because this is very new for the NHS and for police forces to suddenly get people asking if they can install programming languages, for example. And so there can be a bit of resistance. Now, in our experience, it always goes through okay in the end, but that delay can be a problem, because you're going to need this stuff from day one of your training. So my advice would be, I would start having those conversations now with your IT department to see if they can get this kind of stuff installed for you. And if you do have access to your own computer that you could use, maybe download it on that too, so that you've got that as a backup should there be any delays as well. In terms of computer specs, so one thing to flag up, all of us within the team, all of the HSMA trainers, we all use Linux operating systems because it's great for coding, but we're not going to insist that you all install a new operating system. It's a bit much. All of the stuff we teach you, you can use on either Windows or Mac OS as well. For all of the training stuff that we do, all of the code that we show you, all of it will be very simple examples that aren't computationally expensive. And so you don't need to worry about having a very high spec computer for any of that. If you do get into the neural network stuff around machine learning, then again, you still don't need to worry about that too much. There are alternatives such as Google Colab and other services that we will point you to, which basically allow you to use a computer in the cloud that's a very high spec computer to be able to do this kind of stuff. But if you do have access to a high-end PC with a CUDA-enabled NVIDIA GPU, and there's a little link down here which will circulate as well. You can look up to see if your GPU makes the cut. You will find you'll be able to run stuff locally, neural network stuff, and it will be significantly faster. You'll find a great benefit from doing that. So it's just a flag up, absolutely not necessary. But if you do have access to that, or you want to convince your partner that why you should spend £1,500 on a new graphics card, this is your argument to do it. Or you can just sneak it in the house as I did with my wife. So that's phase one. In terms of progression to phase two, basically towards the end of phase one, towards the end of the training phase, we ask you all to put together some project pitches, which basically say, what am I going to do? What's the project that I'm proposing to do in phase two? And we will judge those pitches based on three key criteria. There's some others which will circulate over time, but basically is this thing going to make a difference? Does it have impact? Is this important for patients? Is it important for the service? Is it practical? Can you do this within that time? And have you got the skills to be able to do it, basically, both in terms of the project management and also in terms of your technical skills, which we judge from the technical assessment. And again, that's just to make sure that you'll be okay. You won't drown if you were doing this. All of that goes to a panel meeting which is made up of us as the trainers, patient representatives, and some HSMA alumni as well. And we make some decisions and we select some projects. But as ever with HSMA, it's a very inclusive thing. So even if your project doesn't get selected, you can still carry on with the HSMA program, because you can join in with one of the other projects. And we strongly encourage people to do that. We've got that working for HSMA 3, and it's great to see people working together on stuff as well. So as you're running your project, as I said, the project remains you. It's your project. You have complete ownership of that. You're the one that's going to be designing and building the model and setting out the project. And when you're going to be doing things, you're the one that's going to be going and speaking to the stakeholders that you need to speak to design your model or your piece of AI or whatever it is. You're going to be delivering the results, and you will get the credit because it's your project. And if you want, you can co-author a paper with us as well. You can get a publication history out of it. You're also going to be sort of supported by two people, though. First, you'll each be allocated a mentor, which will either be somebody, one of us within the Pencore team, or somebody external who's gone through the trainee mentor program, which I'll briefly mention in a second. And then you'll also be supported by a workplace supervisor, and that's basically somebody senior in your organization. Now, you need to nominate that person as part of the application process. They're basically there to help facilitate this project. And to champion your work, and to basically help you open the doors to make sure your project work gets used, and you don't just become this sort of geek in the corner that does something on a Wednesday afternoon that nobody really understands. That actually it becomes integrated and knitted into the routine analytical function. And your mentor is there, one of us, basically just to nudge you in the right direction and provide advice and support. And then once a month in phase 2, you all come together for a virtual learning set meeting. And basically, we all come together and you talk about what you've been doing on your project. You share any successes and challenges you've had, any new approaches you found that have been really useful. You get ideas from others. And then you get to speak to your mentor as well, and you talk about what you might do for your next steps. And these are crucial. They really do encourage the kind of collaboration, sharing, and peer support, which are at the heart of the way the HSMA program works as well. And at the end of the program, you will present your work to a national audience of health, social care and policing and academic staff as well. And you saw from HSMA 2 an example of such an event in that video at the start of this morning. So just to flag up, the one for the current version of the program, HSMA 3, is going to be held on the 29th of September. It will be held as a virtual event for this one. We'll send out an invitation to you nearer the time with more details about that. If you can come along to that, do hold that in your diary, because I think you'll find that really useful to hear about what our current HSMAs have been doing and about the impact that's had. I also briefly mentioned the trainee mentor scheme. I think we've got a couple of the people interested in that here today as well. So basically, the trainee mentor scheme is a way for us to be able to increase the number of projects we can take forward in the program by training up some people to be mentors. And these are people who are kind of current operational researchers or data scientists, or they might be academics or practitioners, or maybe even HSMA alumni. We've got a few of our alumni who have signed up to be mentors as well. And basically what we do is we sort of train you up in the same, you get the access to the same training program as everyone else. And we give you a little extra sort of mentor training as well to talk about how you're going to mentor people. And then we have 10 places available for mentors to work in phase 2 to mentor a project themselves. So mentors should be experienced either academics or practitioners in these areas, or HSMA alumni, and what you will need to be able to do is to commit 10% of your time for 9 months between January and September next year to HSMA mentoring, plus sort of attend the monthly 2-hour learning set meeting and the final event in September. And basically it involves being around on the Slack channel to respond to queries from your mentees, setting up sometimes virtual meetings with your mentees if they need a bit more support about something, providing general advice and guidance, and directing them to self-learning resources. It's not really there to give them direct hands-on technical support mostly. It's mainly there to sort of guide them through the process. And hopefully, the kind of carrots for you is that this is a fantastic skills development opportunity for you, potentially allows you to generate publications from this, particularly if you're an academic. That's always important. And it's a great opportunity to work with some fantastic people on some really impactful projects. So I'm just going to very briefly talk about the application process. This very high budget graphic will set the tone for the HSMA program, and it's there to proclaim that we have 100 places available. This is slightly insane, but we are opening up 100 places on this program. 10 of those will be for the trainee mentor program, but the other 90 will be for the rest of you coming on as students. The application pack will launch today. You will receive an email this afternoon. Kath will send that out to you, and the applications will close at midnight, just before midnight on the 28th of July. So do make sure you get these things in on time. There are 5 parts of the application pack. There's some information for applicants. Please read that. It's about 2 or 3 pages, but please read it because it contains all of the essential information you need to know before you start your application. It contains a person specification, basically what we're looking for from you. The key dates, so all of the training dates are in there. All of the other dates, like learning set meeting dates, they've all been set. So you can see the dates you need to commit to ahead of time. And then the you'll get copies of the application form. You've got PDF copies, but you'll actually that's there for your reference, so you can draft your answers. The email will explain all this, but when you're submitting your application, you actually need to do it using the online form, and you'll have links to that. And just complete one of those applications, depending on if you're applying to be a student, which most of you will be, or if you are applying to be a mentor, then you'll complete a slightly different form. So I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to whiz through a lot of this. All of this information will be in your application packs you'll see this afternoon. But just to sort of point out a few key things, really. So if you want to be a student on HSMA 4, you need to be based in a health, social care, or policing organisation, or some related organisation. Public health, third sector is all good as well, but you must be based in England because that's the area covered by our funding. You need to have full support from your organisation. This is a big commitment. Hopefully it's worthwhile, but you know it's a big commitment, so it's a big slice of your time for a year. So they need to be on board with this, and you can't have undertaken HSMA previously. You may have applied, but assuming you didn't actually get onto the program and went through it, then you're fine. If you want to be a mentor, then you need to be somebody that's either an academic or practitioner in OR or data science, or you've been through the HSMA program before and you want to now give back and be a mentor. And as I say, you need to commit 10% of your time, roughly between January and September next year. All the information for applicants, again, just to flag up, that's one of the most important documents to read before you start your application. The person spec, again, I'm not going to go through this in detail. Do you know what? I think probably the most important thing that we're looking for, beyond that you've kind of got the skills to be able to pick this stuff up. Remember, you don't need to. All of the stuff that we teach is programming based, but we're not expecting you to have done any programming before. You may have, and that's great, and that'll help you decide whether this is something for you. But that's not essential. We will teach you programming from the ground up. What's more important, I would argue, is that you've got this actual sort of raw passion for the kind of stuff that we're going to be teaching, and actually that you've got a passion for wanting to do applied research. You want to be able to do stuff that makes a real difference for people. The application process, some of the key dates for that. So the applications will open this afternoon. If you are applying for the trainee mentor scheme, just to flag up, there is an additional meeting you need to come to on the 20th of July as part of your application. It's a very short 90-minute meeting, basically just so you can meet the team and we can have a chat with you about what this will entail, and we can find out a bit about why you want to apply to be a mentor. Applications will close on the 28th of July. That is strict. We can't accept applications beyond that, and we will endeavour to let you know by the 11th of August at the latest as to whether you were successful or not. Hopefully it should be much sooner, but we'll certainly let you know by the close of play on that day. I mentioned the showcase event on the 29th of September, and then phase 1 will essentially commence on the 5th of October with the first training day, and all that information is in your packs in your application packs that you've got this afternoon, and you see that phase 1 finishes around the 16th of December, and then phase 2 begins again on the 17th of January. So you get about a month off over Christmas, which is nice. So I'm not going to go into all that, but that's the key date information that you will see in your application packs. The application form, I've tried to make this as friendly as possible, but basically you'll have some initial eligibility checks. You just have to confirm that you're eligible for this. We'll ask you some information to gain some information about your technical skills. So it's basically a tick box exercise with very brief details for each to just try and give the best examples you can for that particular tick box that demonstrates your particular skills. And then you'll be given a set of 3 scenarios, and we're looking to see how you respond to them. And it's important to say that those scenarios don't necessarily have a right answer, and we're not necessarily looking for a right answer. We're just trying to understand a bit about your thought processes, how you might approach something. Modeling and data science requires a lot of sort of creativity and logical thinking. So just trying to get you to think and see how you respond to that kind of thing. And then there's the applicant statement, probably the most important question on the form. Why HSMA? Why do you want to be an HSMA? What is this for you? What motivates you to do it? And why does your organization want you to do this too? And the organizational support, so you will need to sign off on behalf of a senior member, might be your line manager or somebody else who has responsibility for your workload or your time. They will become your workplace supervisor if you get through to phase 2. So please check with them first. You are signing on behalf of somebody quite senior, so do make sure they have approved that. The mentor version, similar but a little bit different. So again, some eligibility checks, some technical skills, basically just checking what sort of experience you've got in OR or data science. You don't have to have used the same software and approaches we teach, because we teach that to you, but we're just seeing what you've got experience in using before, and similarly why you want to become a mentor. And of course the organizational support, important for you guys as well. And as I say, do make sure if you are applying for the trainee mentor scheme, you do need to come along to the 20th of July meeting between 10 and 11:30 to speak to us within the team about your application. One thing I just want to point out, we are expecting a huge number of applications to this program. So as of this morning, we had 211 people who had registered their interest for this program. Now that is phenomenal. That's huge, and it's part of the reason why we've expanded the number of places available from 50 to 100. So we are expecting, and based on previous rounds of the program, we tend to get a lot more that apply beyond that as well. So we are likely to be in a situation where we literally have hundreds of applications coming in. Now, we will be judging all applications on their merit, but because of the sheer volumes, it's likely we're going to need to turn down a number of good applications. So the key thing I want to say about this is that we are looking at the moment about how we run HSMA 5 to be even bigger, to allow us to really go national with this, and to try and find funding, essentially, to be frank, to support that, to allow us to buy in the extra resource to be able to support an expanded version of the program. So don't be too despondent if you don't make it this year. There's the opportunity to apply next year. Hopefully we'll have more places available. But please still do apply this year, because you may be exactly who we're looking for this year. So please do apply. But as I say, don't be disappointed if you don't. We're also going to have a reserve list as well. So you may be placed on a reserve list for this year. And if somebody sort of pulls out before the course starts, their situation changes or whatever, then you may be then invited onto the program. So as I say, very much I would encourage you to continue to apply.